Hi everyone, welcome to our next webinar in the career series. Today, as you probably know, we're going to be talking about interview advice, how to nail that interview. I feel we're in a really great place to give this advice. Those of you who don't know us already, we're Instant Impact. We're the UK's leading graduate recruitment agency, and we connect the UK's top graduates with small startups and SMEs. I'm going to be talking to you about interview advice today. So things like how to prepare, how to calm those inevitable nerves. And then with us, really excitingly today, we have Rob Blythe, who is the founder and director of Instant Impact. And he's going to be giving his own perspective about the things he looks for when he's employing and interviewing candidates. So no point hanging about, as always, we'll get straight into it. First of all, congratulations, you've made it to interview stage. And this is an achievement in itself. Though you haven't actually secured the job yet, it's really important to remember that the employer has already seen some potential in you. They're already impressed with your CV and cover letter, and they want to bring you in to see if everything that you've said on paper matches in real life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. So the purpose, as I said, of the interview is to make sure that everything on paper matches up to how you are. The employer wants to see things like personality skills and what you can bring to the table if you're employed, and they go ahead and make that hire. So the main thing is when you're interviewing is to remember to be as natural as possible the whole way through and to let as much of you shine through as possible. So our first point today is about the basic framework for an interview. So if you've watched our other webinars about CVs and cover letters, you will remember me saying that the CV is all about the facts. So the facts about your employability history, your extracurriculars at university, your academics, all sorts of things like that. Whereas the interview, you'll need to back up those facts and give real life examples to prove that you have the skills and attributes you've claimed. So what we'd recommend is whenever you're asked an interview question, to use the STAR framework. So the STAR framework stands for situation, task, action, and result. So for any question you're asked, think of an example. And if you use this framework, it will really come in handy to make sure your answers are well structured and you're getting the right examples and the right information across. So, for example, situation. Think of a time when you've taken part in, say, an internship or work experience. You could use something for your extracurricular activities, like being a member of a society, and set the groundwork. So, I was a member of XYZ society. Next comes the task. So, this is based on what the question is actually asking. A really good example for this would be, give me a time that you've worked and led a team to a common goal. So the task is that obviously I had to lead a team and give a bit of background. How many people were in the team? What was the framework? What was the actual task that we were presented to doing? So here it might be, for example, we had to run an event. Great. The action is exactly what you did in that role as a leader to lead the the members of your team towards that common goal. So together, I made sure that together we did this, this, and this. I kept the team organized. I set the agenda. I made sure that people in the team that weren't pulling their weight were contributing, all things like that. That's where you really bring in exactly what you did to achieve the goal. And then in the end is the result. So what happened? Was the event successful? How many people turned up? What actually happened? Where was your input and how did that have a really successful output on the thing that you were managing? So we also say that in using this framework, it's really important to have a real broad mix of examples. So for example, don't focus all of your examples on that one internship you had last summer. Use things from your extracurricular activities, university experience, for example, if you were involved in group work. Really make sure that you're showcasing as much as possible. Otherwise, it will narrow you down when the employer is assessing you. So next thing that we're going to talk about today is those harrowing questions you get in interview. So the little questions that are designed to throw and panic you. Some employers do this to see how you react under pressure and also to see how you think on the spot. So here's some of our advice on how to prepare for these and make sure that you are nailing them and really kind of getting them in the bag when you're asked them. So the first of all is before you go into interview, try and make a list of all the potential little questions and small little things that you might be asked in interview stage. And think about how you would answer them. When you've got that list, ask a friend, ask a parent to put you on the spot and ask those questions. This really puts you in the situation of the interview and makes you kind of aware of how you will respond under pressure and how you will actually answer when you're in the interview stage. Mapping out questions is a really good interview preparation because it will give you the confidence to know that you're ready for basically whatever they'll throw at you. And sometimes it is also okay to answer in an interview a question with, I don't actually know the answer. So, there'll be cases where an employer asks you a question and you don't know how to answer that. It's absolutely fine to say that in the interview. But a tip of advice that we would give you is to follow that up with something. So if it's I'm afraid I don't actually know the answer to that question, you could follow it up with, but I would really like to find out more about this, or it never actually crossed my mind. Please, can you tell me more? This shows the employer that even though you didn't know the answer in the first place, you have that aptitude and potential to learn, which is obviously crucial for any starter role or graduate entry job. They really want to see that you're able to learn and think on your feet and go forward in that role, even if you don't actually have the skills ready to do that job at that moment in time. So that's a little bit of advice on kind of interview questions and mapping it out and using the STAR framework to really make sure you're getting all the information and all your examples all in one area. So you've got all that, you've actually prepared for the interview. What now? You're ready to go. So we would say read and read again and read again all the information that the interviewer has sent you before interview. Things like making sure that you know the framework and the way that the interview will pan out. For example, there's no point turning up to an interview having planned all of these weird and wonderful questions if the interview is going to be competency-based. Also, if they've asked you to do something or prepare something before, as you probably know, there's nothing worse than turning up and feeling completely underprepared. Small things as well. Do you know what to wear? For example, if you are going to an interview with a startup company or an SME, it might be the fact that they actually evoke a very kind of casual work policy. So you might turn up to an interview in a straight-laced suit, but everybody else in the interview is in, T-shirts or even jeans, and you just feel completely out of place. So when in doubt, always ask the interviewer about little things like that. Also, do you know where it is? Sometimes it can be extremely stressful trying to find out exactly where an interview is taking place. We really suggest that you do your homework, you look for the place, and also maybe turn up half an hour early to really make sure that you're on time. Then if you are early, you can just go down the road to a cafe, read over your notes, calm yourself down to make sure that when you turn up on the door, you're ready and in the frame of mind to get serious, not blustering, panicking, maybe feeling slightly sweaty. You've got that time to calm down, you know where the interview is, and you're good to go. So our final point from me before we pass you on to Rob is about interview nerves. And also sorry guys, we just had a little technical hitch there. Just give me 1 second. No problem. Okay, so as I was saying, we are going to talk about how to calm down your nerves. So nerves are a crucial thing for an interview. They're completely natural, and you would be slightly worried if you weren't nervous before an interview. So we've got a few tips on what to do on how to just really make sure that you're in the right frame of mind and you're using those nerves and that nervous energy for beneficial purposes. So first of all, really obvious advice, just breathe. And also remember to smile. You should be excited to be there when you turn up for interview. If you're not, then perhaps this isn't the best place for you. The next thing is always to ask for water, because water can help, just knowing that you've got that extra thing to help you clear your voice, calm down, take a breather, have a sip of water. It just can be a really helpful thing. And if an employer hasn't provided you with it, it's always absolutely fine to ask for it. Next thing is to think about body language. So sometimes when you're really nervous, you can sit there really straight-laced, panicking, holding the sides of your jacket. It's really important to think about your body language and the message that you're trying to evoke. So pick up on other people's body language in the room. If they're slightly more relaxed, try to relax yourself. If the person opposite you has their legs crossed, cross your legs, mirror the person's body language, and then that will really set a nice tone in the room. Final point is that remember that conversations should flow easily. So always, come in with small questions here and there, ask questions back when they're asking you questions, and just try and make sure, as I said at the start, that the interview is flowing and you are being as natural as you can and you're getting your personality across. So 1 second, guys, I'm just going to check with Rob. I think he's had a bit of a problem and he's gone off. What I will do instead is I'll just put this on pause and I will invite Rob to come and take my seat so he can then take you through the kind of crucial things that he looks for when he's employing candidates. And I will be back in 1 minute.
Hi guys, Rob here. Sorry about that. Part of the beauty of working at small businesses, sometimes computers crash on you and do all those things. Hope you found that brief from Hannah really useful. I think the advice she gave you should hopefully put you in a good position to really do well when you actually get into the interview. So I'm going to talk about impressions from an employer's side, as well as someone who's interviewed for roles and met a large number of small businesses before, just in terms of what we really look for when people come in to meet us. So the first thing's timekeeping. Hannah touched upon timekeeping, saying obviously you don't want to be late. I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to be late. Obviously that's very obvious. I think one thing that is important and perhaps less obvious is that when you are going to meet a smaller company, they don't necessarily have a huge waiting area, and so if you do arrive too early, it can become a burden for the company. So what we really want to see is someone to be professional, at turning up somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes early, instead of half an hour. As Hannah said, if you are running early, that's fantastic. Obviously, much better than being late. Just go around the corner, grab a coffee, chill out, and prepare, ready to start your interview in due course. The second thing, and I think when you do prepare for interviews and you're thinking why you want to work at a company, it's maybe something that you lose sight of a little bit, and you really want to see personality coming through. I think as an employer, you really want to get to know the person that you're interviewing. It's going to be someone that you spend a lot of your working day in and around, and you want to make sure that that personality is right, not just for the team, for the role, but also for the company in general. I really want to get under the skin of who you are, and as well as preparing thoroughly, which I would obviously advise. And I think the STAR framework that Hannah's provided is a fantastic way of doing that. I really do want to see you actually open up, listen to the questions that are being asked, and relax. I like to put people that we're interviewing certainly at ease. I know some interviewers try and make things a bit harder, but still, I think regardless of who the interviewer is, they do want to see you showing who you are, telling us about what you do and what you like to do. There's no point covering up or trying to present yourself as something that you're not, because if you get the role on that basis, then it probably isn't the right role for you in the first place. And if they don't want you for who you are, then maybe it's their loss. The third thing is genuine enthusiasm for the position. It's all well and good having studied, read up, and researched ad nauseum about a company, but when you actually get in there, sit down and meet, what you want to see is someone who can really portray enthusiasm. It may be that you're not the most enthusiastic person naturally, but interviews are quite a stilted environment at times, and you do need to show that you are enthusiastic. So try and be as energetic as possible when you're talking about the company and the opportunity that you're going in to meet about. The person sitting on the other side of the table has dedicated their time and energy into setting up the business or running a certain part of the company. They think what they're doing is exciting, and they really want to see you reflect that in the way you act and the way you respond to their questions. Fourth, as well as understanding the company, you obviously need to understand the industry. If you're going for an interview, particularly in an industry perhaps you don't know all that much about, it's important to have a read around, look at the competitors, look at the competitive landscape, look at different things about that industry that maybe you won't get asked about, but you can certainly drop in subtle tidbits that you really do know what you're talking about. For example, with us, we'd like to think that we're very different to a lot of different recruitment companies, but when people come to meet us, I really want people to be well aware of recruitment in general, aware of some of the bad reputation that recruitment has as an industry, and understand how we're different. I think the next thing, we really want to see how you think. As Hannah alluded to, some employers do like asking challenging questions. I don't want to just ask you things that you could have prepared and have a written answer to everything already. So I will try and challenge someone who comes in to meet us, and that's not in a nasty or vindictive way. It's just to see how you think. We like every employee here at Instant Impact to be able to think for themselves, be able to innovate, and be entrepreneurial, and asking challenging questions is just part of that. I think one of the keys, though, in answering it is not rushing into it, taking time to think about what's being asked of you, taking time to perhaps ask further questions so you develop a thorough understanding of what that question is, and then talking through your reasoning, much as you've been taught for years and years about how to write exam answers and how to show everyone your thought process as well as your end conclusion. It's just important to talk through how you're thinking. And I think bear in mind that when you are asked challenging questions, often there aren't necessarily wrong answers. If the question is being asked of you to see how you think and see how you can brainstorm about suggestions, then don't be afraid to actually do that. Obviously, if it's a case study for something more consultancy orientated, you need to take even more time and make sure that your thinking really is on point before answering the question. Then the penultimate thing I'd like to say is really want you to be able to listen as well as talk. I think interviewing is also an opportunity for you to understand more about the company, and it's important for you to show that you can really answer the actual question that's being asked instead of the one that you've been prepared for. There can be subtle differences in the way I've always been taught and always have taught people to interview is to probe on answers. So if I ask a question, I will listen to your answer and then ask the next question as a flowing interview from there, instead of just reading off a hymn sheet. And I think you should look to answer questions in the same way. Take what's being said and really try and get to the crux of what the answer is there. And that kind of links back into taking time to think about your answers instead of rushing straight into them, because it might be something you've been expecting or thinking about, but it may have a subtle difference that's really what the other person is looking to get towards. And then the final thing, which I've touched upon already, is that interviewing is very much a two-way process. I feel as an employer and a director of a small business that I have as much of a job to impress you when you come in to interview with us as you do to impress us. Part of that is to come with inquisitive questions, well thought out questions, and questions that are beyond the standard. I don't think there's much more advice I can give there. I think you really need to think about what's important to you and the questions that you want to ask. Why was the business set up, etc. Or showing an interest is a very powerful way of really displaying how much you want the role beyond just the normal questions. And yeah, don't be afraid to stop partway through the interview and ask questions as you go, instead of waiting until the end and asking questions just at the end in the normal structure. I like people who want to ask questions throughout the process. So still having technical difficulties, but I'm going to hand back to Hannah, who's going to take over this seat, which we've been swapping in and out of. And I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope that's been really helpful.
Hi guys, back to me again. It's a bit like musical chairs over here. Anyhow, that concludes the session for today. Just a few more things to go through. As we always say at the end of webinars, if you have any further questions or need any further help, do email us at webinars@instant-impact.com, and we'd love to answer your questions. Also, further to that, in a couple of weeks' time, we do have the opportunity for you to book some slots for mock interviews. So if interviews is something you really struggle with, you just want to get some more advice, some feedback on how you perform at interview level, do go onto our website, which is instant-impact.com, and you can book straight onto one of these sessions, and we'd love to help you out. But anyway, thank you so much, and we hope to see you soon in one of our future webinars.